I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible. But there's something about insecurity that nobody understands until it completely takes over your brain. Everyone thinks Jake is the villain in the story, the guy who blocked his girlfriend and immediately started dating her supposed friend. But the truth is I'm the one who ruined everything, and here's what really happened. The worst part about what happened isn't that I lost Jake. It's not even that I lost my dignity or my reputation or any of the normal things people assume bother me when they give me those pitying looks. The worst part is something I've never told anyone, and it changes everything about how you'll see this whole mess. If I don't tell this story, you'll never understand why I'm still checking his Instagram stories from a burner account every single day. But once you know what I know, you'll see why I had no choice except to keep torturing myself with the evidence of my own spectacular failure. This isn't just about a relationship that ended badly. It's about a fear so deep and so irrational that I literally destroyed the best thing in my life trying to prove it wrong. And everyone thinks they know what happened based on what they saw, but the real story will change how you see everything forever. I'm going to tell you everything, including the specific messages I sent that I can never unsend. And the part that makes me look worst, I'm saving that for near the end because you need to understand where my head was first. You need to understand what it feels like to be so convinced you're not enough that you'll sabotage yourself just to control when the inevitable happens. Jake and I had been dating for 8 months when I decided to test him. I know how that sounds. I know the internet has made testing your partner into this universally acknowledged red flag that everyone claims they'd never do. But I need you to understand that I didn't wake up one morning and think, you know what, I'm going to manipulate my boyfriend for fun. It built up slowly, like water filling a bathtub you forgot you were sitting in. We met through mutual friends at a birthday party. He was funny and attentive and texted back at normal intervals, not too eager, not too aloof. He had a good job as a project manager at a tech company. He was tall but not intimidatingly so. He remembered small things I mentioned in passing. On paper he was perfect. That was the problem. I kept waiting for the catch. For the moment when I discover he was actually terrible, or when he'd discover that I wasn't as great as I seemed during our carefully curated dates. I have this thing where I present really well initially. I'm good at first impressions, at being charming and low maintenance and fun. But eventually the real me comes out, the anxious, overthinking, occasionally needy version, and that's when guys usually start to fade. But Jake didn't fade. 3 months in, 6 months in, he was still there. Still texting good morning. Still making plans for the future. Still introducing me to new people in his life. That's when I met Melissa. She was everything I'd spent my entire adult life trying to be. Effortlessly pretty in that way where she could wear a baggy sweatshirt and still look put together. Naturally confident without being aggressive about it. The kind of girl who could tell a story at a party and command the whole room's attention without seeming like she was trying. She worked in marketing at the same company as Jake, though in a different department. You'll love Melissa, Jake said when he invited me to a company happy hour. She's hilarious, and she's been asking to meet you. I should have felt flattered. Instead, I felt my stomach drop, because of course Jake knew someone like Melissa. Of course he worked with a woman who was objectively more attractive, more successful, more naturally charismatic than me. The miracle was that he'd chosen me at all. At the happy hour, Melissa was exactly as advertised. She greeted me with a hug like we were already friends. She complimented my dress. She told me funny stories about Jake at work that made him blush but weren't actually embarrassing. She asked me questions about my job in graphic design and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. I'm so glad Jake found you, she said at one point, touching my arm with this warm sincerity. He seems really happy. I smiled and thanked her, but all I could think was this is the kind of woman he should be with. This is the kind of woman he'll eventually realize he should be with. They had inside jokes from work. They'd gotten lunch together dozens of times. They texted about projects and office drama. Jake showed me some of their message threads once, completely unprompted, because he was telling me a story about their nightmare boss. The texts were friendly, occasionally funny, completely innocent, which somehow made it worse. If he was hiding something, I could confront it. But he wasn't hiding anything. He genuinely saw Melissa as just a friend and colleague. He had no idea that every time he mentioned her name, I was mentally cataloging another reason why she was better than me. I started checking his phone occasionally when he was in the shower. Not because I expected to find anything, but because I needed to prepare myself for when the inevitable happened. I needed to see the moment when his feelings shifted, when he started seeing her as more than a friend. I needed to control my own heartbreak by seeing it coming. I found nothing. Their texts remained platonic. His search history was boring. His Instagram likes were random. There was no evidence of anything wrong. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my best friend Sarah got engaged. She'd been with her boyfriend for 6 years and I was genuinely happy for her. But at the engagement party, watching her slow dance with her fiancé while everyone took photos, I felt this crushing pressure in my chest. Jake squeezed my hand. You okay? Yeah, just emotional, I said. Which was true, but not in the way he thought. I was emotional because I was already grieving our relationship. I was grieving the future I could see so clearly but didn't believe I'd get to keep. Because how could I? When had I ever gotten to keep anything good? Sarah pulled me aside near the end of the night, tipsy and glowing. You and Jake are next, she said. I can feel it. I laughed it off, but later that night, lying next to Jake in his bed while he slept, I stared at the ceiling and thought there's no way. There's no way this lasts. There's no way he doesn't eventually wake up and realize he could do better. The testing started small. I'd take longer to respond to his texts, just to see if he'd double text or seem annoyed. He usually just waited patiently, then responded enthusiastically whenever I did reply. I'd cancel plans last minute with a flimsy excuse to see if he'd get frustrated. He'd just say no worries and suggest an alternative day. His consistency should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like waiting for a dam to break. Because everyone has limits, right? Everyone eventually gets fed up with a girlfriend who's being difficult. I was just trying to find where his limit was before I got too attached. Except I was already too attached. That was the problem. One night after we'd had sex and were lying in that comfortable half-asleep state, he said, I love you, you know. It was the first time either of us had said it. My heart should have soared. Instead, I felt like I was falling. I love you too, I said, because I did. That was the worst part. I loved him so much it physically hurt. He fell asleep holding me. I lay awake for 3 hours, convinced I'd just sealed my fate. Now that he'd said it, now that we'd crossed that threshold, the clock was really ticking on when he'd figure out he'd made a mistake. The Instagram message I sent Melissa started innocently enough. We'd followed each other after the happy hour and we'd occasionally liked each other's posts. I commented on a photo of her at a concert and we ended up DMing about the band, then about other music, then about restaurants we tried, then about random things like TV shows and work frustrations. We were becoming friends, I told myself. It was normal for your boyfriend's friends to become your friends. It wasn't weird that I was initiating most of our conversations. It wasn't weird that I felt this compulsive need to know what she thought about things, to understand how her mind worked, to figure out exactly what made her so effortlessly likable. Jake mentioned you two are going to that new sushi place, she messaged me one day. I'm so jealous, I've been dying to try it. Something ugly twisted in my chest. He told her about our date plans before he told me about them. We discussed getting sushi sometime, but he hadn't confirmed a specific restaurant or time with me yet, but he'd mentioned it to Melissa. You should come with us, I typed before I could think better of it. Jake wouldn't mind, the more the merrier, she sent back a laughing emoji. That's sweet, but I'm not trying to third wheel on your date night. Tell me how it is though. I brought it up to Jake that night. I invited Melissa to join us for sushi, but she said no. We should all hang out more though, the three of us. Jake looked up from his laptop. Sure, that could be fun, though I see Melissa at work constantly. I like having our time be just us, you know? The reasonable, healthy part of my brain knew that was a completely normal thing to say. The toxic, spiraling part heard he wants to keep you separate. He wants to maintain boundaries between his different relationships, which means he's thinking about his relationship with her as something distinct and special. I just think it's weird that you spend so much time with her and I barely know her, I said. Jake's eyebrows went up. You've met her several times, you two seem to get along great. In group settings, I meant like really know her. Okay, Jake said slowly. We can definitely all hang out if you want. I just didn't think you'd want to spend your free time with my coworker. Why wouldn't I want that? Is there a reason you don't want us to be close? Now he looked genuinely confused. No, babe, where is this coming from? I should have backed down. I should have said nowhere and changed the subject. Instead, I said, I just notice you text her a lot and talk about her a lot, and I want to make sure there's nothing I should be worried about. The hurt that flashed across Jake's face should have stopped me. Are you serious right now? I've never given you any reason not to trust me. I didn't say I don't trust you, I'm just saying it's a lot of contact with another woman. A colleague who I've known for 2 years, who has never been anything but professional and friendly. Who has a boyfriend, by the way, which I didn't think I needed to point out because I didn't realize we were doing this. Doing what? This thing where you're acting jealous about someone who's literally just my friend. The word jealous stung because it was accurate. I'm not jealous, I'm just observant. We argued in circles for another 20 minutes before Jake finally said he needed space to cool off and went for a walk. I sat on his couch feeling like I'd swallowed glass. I just started a fight over nothing. I'd revealed my crazy. This was the beginning of the end. When he came back, he was calmer. Look, I get it. Sometimes work friendships can seem intense from the outside. If it makes you uncomfortable, I can set some boundaries. I can text her less. We can all hang out so you feel more included, whatever you need. The fact that he was being so understanding made me feel worse, because I didn't want him to change his behavior. I wanted him to fail some test that would prove my anxiety was justified. I wanted evidence that I was right to guard my heart. But I told him everything was fine and let him kiss me and pretended the fight had cleared the air. Meanwhile, my brain was already planning the next move. I started messaging Melissa more frequently. asked her opinion on gifts for Jake, complained about minor work frustrations, sent her funny memes. She always responded warmly, never seemed annoyed by my constant contact. We made plans to get coffee, just the two of us. Coffee, she told me about her boyfriend Drew, who worked in finance and traveled constantly. It's hard sometimes, she admitted. We don't get to see each other as much as I'd like. But when you know, right? How do you know though? I asked. How are you sure he's the one? She stirred her latte thoughtfully. I guess I'm not sure in some absolute sense, but I'm sure enough to keep choosing him every day. That's all relationships are, really, just choosing each other over and over. It sounded nice. It sounded simple. It sounded completely impossible for someone whose brain was constantly catastrophizing. Can I ask you something weird? I said. Always. Do you ever think Jake could do better than me? Melissa's face immediately shifted to concern. What? No, why would you think that? I shrugged, trying to seem casual. I don't know, you work with him, you see him every day. You know him in ways I don't. I guess I just wonder if there's someone at the office who'd be a better match. The only person he ever talks about is you, Melissa said firmly. Genuinely, at least once a week he finds an excuse to bring you up. It's actually kind of adorable how into you he is. This should have reassured me. Instead, my brain twisted it into he talks about me because he's trying to convince himself I'm enough. He's trying to talk himself out of his doubts. Over the next few weeks, Melissa and I got closer. We texted daily. We sent each other TikToks. We complained about people in our lives, though never about Jake or Drew. We made plans to get our nails done together. From the outside, we looked like genuine friends. And in some ways we were. I actually liked her. That was the confusing part. She was funny and kind and easy to talk to. In another universe where I wasn't completely mentally unraveling, she could have been my actual best friend. But in this universe, she was also my competition for a competition she didn't know existed and didn't want to be in. Jake seemed happy that Melissa and I were getting along. I knew you two would click, he said. My two favorite women becoming friends, that's the dream. My two favorite women. The phrase rattled around my brain for days. Two favorite women, like we were on equal footing, like she was just as important to him as I was, just in a different way. Which meant if circumstances were different, if I wasn't in the picture, she'd be the natural choice. I was at Melissa's apartment one evening. She'd invited me over for wine and a new Netflix show when I saw a photo on her fridge. It was from a work event, Melissa and Jake and a few other colleagues at some company dinner. They looked happy, natural together, like they fit. That was such a fun night, Melissa said, noticing me looking. We got so drunk that Jake tried to convince everyone to go karaoke after. It was a mess. When was this? Oh, like a month before you guys started dating, I think, back when he was perpetually single and claiming he was married to his job. Something about the timeline bothered me, though I couldn't articulate why. They'd been friends before I existed in Jake's life. They had history. They had a foundation I couldn't compete with. Did you ever think about dating him? I asked. The wine had made me bold. Like before me, Melissa laughed. Jake, no, never, he's great, but we've always been just friends. Plus, I started dating Drew around that same time, so I was pretty occupied. But if you hadn't been dating Drew, theoretically, she gave me a strange look. I don't know, I've never thought about it. Why? Just curious, you two are so close, I guess I'm surprised it never crossed either of your minds. Sometimes people are just meant to be friends, Melissa said. Like you and me, I'm not trying to date you either. She was deflecting with humor, but I pressed. But you can see why I'd wonder, right? Like objectively, you two make sense together. Melissa set down her wine glass. Okay, what's really going on? Are you worried about me and Jake? No, I lied. I'm just trying to understand the dynamic. The dynamic is that we're coworkers who are friendly. That's it. I love Drew. Jake loves you. There's no secret subplot here. I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her, but the anxiety was a living thing in my chest now, constantly feeding on every interaction, every word, every possibility. That night, lying in bed alone in my apartment, I made the decision. I needed to know for sure. I needed to test whether Jake's loyalty to me was real or just circumstantial. I needed to see what he'd do if Melissa showed interest. So I was going to make Melissa show interest. The plan formed in my head like something inevitable. I'd flirt with Jake in front of Melissa and gauge her reaction. Then I'd encourage Melissa to flirt with him. Frame it as a joke, maybe. Something that would give her plausible deniability but would show me how Jake responded when the temptation was real and present. I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking. But you have to understand that at this point, I genuinely believed I was gathering information I needed. I thought I was being smart, protective of myself. I thought if Jake failed the test, I'd be heartbroken, but at least I'd know the truth before I wasted more time. And if he passed, then maybe I could finally relax. The opportunity came at a group hangout at Jake's apartment. He'd invited a few friends over for a game night, including Melissa and Drew. I showed up early to help set up. You look amazing, Jake said when he opened the door, pulling me in for a kiss. I dressed carefully. Not so much that it seemed like I was trying too hard, but enough that I looked objectively good. Thanks, babe. Melissa arrived 20 minutes later with Drew, who was exactly as she described, handsome in a generic way, clearly exhausted from his latest business trip, polite but distracted. He was on his phone within 5 minutes of arriving. The game night started normally enough. We played some party game that required teamwork and creativity. Jake and I were on the same team initially. We were good together, anticipating each other's thoughts, laughing at each other's jokes. But then teams switched and Jake ended up paired with Melissa. They were good together too. Actually, they were better. Their shared work context meant they had more references to pull from. They won 3 rounds in a row. Dream team, Melissa said, high-fiving Jake. Their hands lingered together just slightly longer than necessary, or maybe I imagined that. Maybe my brain, hungry for evidence, was manufacturing it. Drew barely looked up from his phone. During a break while someone went to get more drinks, I shifted closer to Melissa on the couch. Jake was in the kitchen. Drew was on a work call in the other room. Drew seems distracted, I said quietly. Melissa sighed. He's always like this after trips. Takes him a few days to mentally come back. That must be lonely. It is sometimes, she admitted. But it's fine, we're fine. She didn't sound fine. She sounded resigned. You know what's funny? I said, keeping my voice light and casual. Earlier I was thinking about how you and Jake have such good chemistry. Like if circumstances were different, you two would probably be really good together. Melissa turned to look at me, surprised. That's a weird thing to say about your boyfriend. Is it? I don't know. I think it's healthy to acknowledge reality. You're both smart, funny, you work in the same industry, you clearly enjoy each other's company. I paused. Sometimes I wonder if I'm actually the right fit for him, or if I'm just the person who happened to be there at the right time. Stop, Melissa said firmly. You're spiraling. Jake is crazy about you. I've witnessed it constantly. But if I wasn't around, you are around. This is a pointless hypothetical. I should have dropped it. Instead, I laughed like it was all just theoretical fun. Okay, but play along. If I wasn't around, would you be interested? Just honestly. Melissa stared at me. Why are you asking me this? Because I want to know if I'm being crazy or if there's actually something there that I'm picking up on. There's nothing there. Jake is my friend, my coworker, that's it. So if he flirted with you right now, you'd shut it down? He's not going to flirt with me, he's in love with you. But hypothetically. Yes, I would shut it down, obviously, because I'm not interested and he's taken. Can we please change the subject? Jake came back with drinks before I could respond. The rest of the game night continued, but the atmosphere had shifted slightly. Melissa was quieter. She left earlier than planned, citing an early morning. Drew barely noticed, still on his phone. After everyone left, Jake pulled me onto the couch with him. That was fun. I'm glad Melissa and Drew came even though Drew was basically not present. Yeah, about that, I said. I think Melissa might be unhappy in her relationship. Really? She hasn't mentioned anything. She wouldn't necessarily. But I picked up on some stuff when we were talking. Jake frowned. That sucks. Drew seems like a good guy, but yeah, he's pretty checked out. I traced patterns on Jake's arm, trying to seem casual. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you and Melissa had met when you were both single? What do you mean? Like, do you think you would have dated? Jake pulled back slightly to look at me. Why are you asking? Just curious. You're so close. It seems like it would have been natural. I've genuinely never thought about it, Jake said. She's my friend, that's all I've ever seen her as. But she's attractive. Sure, objectively, but I'm not attracted to her, I'm attracted to you. How do you know though? How do you know you wouldn't have better chemistry with someone like her if you gave it a chance? Jake sat up fully now, his expression shifting from confused to concerned. Babe, what's going on? This is the second time you've gotten weird about Melissa. Are you really that insecure about my friendship with her? The word insecure hit like a slap, because it was true obviously, but hearing it said out loud made it real, made me pathetic. I'm not insecure, I said defensively. I'm just realistic. You spend 8 hours a day with her. You have more in common with her than you do with me. I work in a completely different field. I don't understand half the stuff you talk about work-wise. She does. So what? You think I should date someone who understands project management frameworks? That's your criteria for compatibility. I think you should be with someone who makes sense for your life. You make sense for my life. You make me happy. Why is that not enough for you? Because happiness is temporary, I wanted to scream. Because eventually you'll wake up and realize you settled. Because everyone leaves eventually and I need to know when it's coming. But I just said, I don't know, forget it. We went to bed with the tension unresolved, and I lay awake again, feeling the relationship slipping through my fingers like water. I was creating the exact outcome I feared. I knew that on some level, but I couldn't stop. The next day I messaged Melissa an apology. Sorry if I was weird last night. Wine makes me philosophical about relationships in a way that's probably annoying. She responded quickly, you weren't annoying. But seriously, you have nothing to worry about with Jake. He's one of the good ones and he clearly adores you. I know, I'm being crazy, ignore me. You're not crazy, just maybe talk to him about what you're feeling instead of me. Sound advice that I had no intention of following. Instead, I escalated. I started liking old photos on Jake's Instagram going back months before we dated. There were several with Melissa. I commented on one cute, didn't know you two were so close back then. Jake called me an hour later. Why are you going through my old Instagram photos? I was just scrolling. Am I not allowed to look at your public profile? Of course you are, it's just, that comment seemed pointed. It wasn't pointed, I genuinely didn't realize you and Melissa hung out so much before we met. We worked together, we got lunch sometimes, it wasn't a big deal. Did you ever have feelings for her back then? Jake was quiet for a moment. I really don't like this thing you're doing. This constant questioning about Melissa, it feels like you're trying to create a problem that doesn't exist. I'm trying to understand our relationship, is that a crime? Our relationship doesn't have anything to do with Melissa. Doesn't it though? She's a huge part of your life, you see her constantly, you have history with her, how is that not relevant to us? Because she's my friend, Jake's voice rose, frustrated. I have other friends too, I have male friends I see constantly. I have friends from college I have history with, you don't interrogate me about them. That's different. Why? Because they're not women. Because you're not as close with them. I'm going to say this once more as clearly as I can. I am not now, nor have I ever been, romantically interested in Melissa. She's my colleague and friend. You are my girlfriend who I love. These are separate categories. If you can't accept that, then we have a serious problem. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. This was the moment where a healthy person would apologize, would recognize they were sabotaging things, would maybe suggest therapy or at least some serious self-reflection. Instead, I said, maybe we do have a serious problem then. Jake exhaled sharply. Is that really what you want, to turn this into a fight about nothing? It's not nothing to me. Then I don't know what else to tell you. I can't prove a negative. I can't prove I don't have feelings for someone. All I can do is tell you the truth and hope you trust me, and clearly you don't. I want to trust you. That's not the same as actually trusting me. We ended the call without resolution. I felt sick to my stomach but also vindicated in some twisted way. See, I told myself, he's getting frustrated with you. It's starting. The end is beginning. What I did next is the part I'm most ashamed of. The part that even now makes me want to crawl out of my skin when I think about it. I decided to manufacture a situation where I could see how Jake and Melissa would interact if they thought I was okay with it, if they thought they had permission. So I messaged Melissa, weird question, but can I ask you for a favor? Of course. Jake's been stressed about work lately and I think he could use a friend. Could you maybe check in on him? Maybe suggest getting lunch or coffee? I think he'd appreciate the support from someone who gets the office dynamics. There was a pause before she responded. Is everything okay with you too? Yeah, totally fine. I just know he's been overwhelmed and I think talking to you might help. You always make him laugh. I can definitely check in, but are you sure you're comfortable with that? I don't want to overstep. You're not overstepping, you're helping. Honestly, I'd feel better knowing he has you to talk to. Another pause. Okay, if you're sure. Totally sure, thank you. I felt triumphant and nauseous at the same time. I just set a trap. Now I just had to wait and see if either of them walked into it. Melissa texted Jake that afternoon. I know because he told me about it that evening when we talked. Melissa messaged me to see if I wanted to grab lunch tomorrow. Said she heard I was stressed and wanted to check in. Did you say something to her? Just that you've been busy at work. Is that okay? I thought it might be nice for you to talk to someone who understands the office stuff. Jake's voice was careful. It's fine. It's just interesting that you went from being weird about my friendship with her to actively encouraging us to hang out. I've been thinking about what you said, about trust. You're right that I need to trust you, so I'm trying. By sending me to have lunch with the person you're convinced I have feelings for. I'm not convinced of that anymore. I was being paranoid. I'm working on it. I could hear the skepticism in his voice. Okay, if you're sure. I'm sure. Have a good lunch. Tell her I say hi. What I didn't tell Jake was that I'd also messaged Melissa with more detailed instructions, framed as casual advice. I know Jake won't want to burden you with work stuff, but he's really stressed. You might need to get a drink in him to get him to open up, lol. And don't let him deflect with humor. He does that when he's uncomfortable. Just be your usual warm, supportive self. He responds well to that. Looking back, I can see how insane this was. I was literally coaching another woman on how to emotionally connect with my boyfriend, creating intimacy between them, setting up the exact scenario I claimed to fear. But in the moment, it felt strategic. If something was going to happen between them, I wanted to control when and how. I wanted to see it coming. I wanted proof that my anxiety was justified. They had lunch. Jake came home and told me it was nice that Melissa had let him vent about work, that he felt better. He seemed lighter, less tense than he'd been in days. I smiled and said I was glad. Then I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, trying to recognize the person looking back. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued to encourage their friendship. I suggested Jake invite Melissa to a concert I couldn't attend because of a work deadline. I asked Melissa for advice on what to get Jake for his birthday, which turned into a long text conversation about his interests and preferences. I created opportunities for them to interact, all while monitoring every detail. Jake seemed confused but went along with it. Melissa seemed hesitant but trusting, and I felt like I was conducting some kind of horrible experiment on my own relationship. Sarah noticed something was off when we met for brunch one Sunday. You seem distracted, she said. Everything okay with Jake? Everything's fine, great actually. You're a terrible liar, what's going on? I told her an edited version of the truth, that I'd been worried about Jake and Melissa, but now I was working on trusting him more. Sarah put down her fork. Working on trusting him by what? Testing him? That's not how trust works. I'm not testing him. Then what are you doing? I couldn't answer because I didn't fully know myself. The plan had shifted and morphed in my mind so many times that I'd lost track of the original logic. Just be careful, Sarah said. Sometimes when you go looking for problems, you create them. Her words echoed in my head for days, but I still didn't stop. The breaking point came at Melissa's birthday party. She'd invited a group to a bar downtown, including me and Jake. Drew was out of town again, which Melissa seemed resigned to. I showed up late, having convinced Jake to go ahead without me. When I arrived, I found them at the bar together, laughing over some story. They looked natural together, easy, like they fit. My stomach twisted, but I plastered on a smile and joined them. As the night went on and drinks flowed, I committed the act I'll regret for the rest of my life. I started flirting with one of Melissa's friends, a guy named Chris who worked with her at the marketing company. He was attractive and friendly and had been chatting with me on and off all night. I laughed too loudly at his jokes. I touched his arm when we talked. I leaned in close when the music got loud. And I made sure Jake could see all of it. I watched his face as he watched me. Confusion first, then hurt, then something harder, more closed off. Melissa noticed too. She came over during a moment when Chris had gone to the bathroom. What are you doing? She asked quietly. What do you mean? I'm just talking to Chris. You're flirting with him in front of Jake. So that's incredibly hurtful. What's going on with you? I felt the words bubble up before I could stop them. Maybe I'm just showing Jake that other people find me attractive. Since he's so close with you, I figured I should have my own close friend too. Melissa's expression shifted from concern to something like disgust. This is insane. You're hurting him for no reason. There's always a reason. What reason? What has he done except love you and put up with your paranoia? The truth felt like poison in my throat. He'll leave eventually anyway. Everyone does. I'm just speeding up the process. Melissa stared at me. You're sabotaging your own relationship because you're scared. Do you realize how fucked up that is? Do you realize how easy it is for you? I shot back. You're effortlessly perfect. You don't have to worry about whether you're enough. You just are. I'm not perfect, and I have plenty of my own problems, which you know if you actually cared about our friendship instead of just seeing me as competition. You are competition. For what? Jake has never looked at me the way he looks at you. Has never talked about me the way he talks about you. I'm not competing for anything because there's no contest, or there wasn't until you decided to blow it all up. Chris came back then, interrupting our conversation. I turned my attention back to him, turning up the flirting even more aggressively. I saw Jake grab his coat from the corner of my eye. He left without saying goodbye. I followed 10 minutes later, finding him outside the bar. Jake, wait, don't. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Just don't. It wasn't what it looked like. It looked like you were flirting with some random guy at your friend's birthday party while your boyfriend watched, so please tell me what it actually was. This was the moment where I could have told the truth, admitted I'd been spiraling, begged for forgiveness, promised to get help. Instead, I said, maybe I wanted to see if you care. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Congratulations, I care. I care that the person I love just humiliated me in front of our friends for some kind of test I didn't know I was taking. I care that apparently everything I've done to show you I'm committed hasn't been enough. I care that you trust me so little that you'd rather blow up our relationship than just believe me when I tell you I love you. I do believe you. You clearly don't, and I'm tired. I'm so tired of trying to prove myself to someone who's determined to find me guilty. He walked away. I stood on the sidewalk shaking, watching him disappear around the corner. I texted him an hour later, I'm sorry, please let me explain. He didn't respond. I texted again the next morning, I know I messed up. I know I've been terrible, but I love you and I want to fix this. Nothing. By that evening when I tried to text again, I got an error message. It took me a few seconds to understand. He blocked me. I felt like I'd been punched. The finality of it was overwhelming. I called from a different number, blocked. I tried Instagram, blocked. Email bounced back. He'd shut every door. I called Sarah, sobbing. She came over and held me while I explained everything, the testing, the manipulation, the flirting with Chris, all of it. I fucked up, I kept saying. I fucked up so bad. Yeah, Sarah said gently. You really did. How do I fix it? I don't know if you can, not right now. He needs space and you need to figure out why you did this. But I couldn't give him space. My anxiety was screaming that space meant he'd forget about me, move on, realize he was better off without me. The thing I'd feared most had happened and I'd caused it myself and I couldn't accept it. I messaged Melissa from one of my burner Instagram accounts, an account I created weeks ago during my spiral, though I hadn't fully admitted to myself why I was making it. Can you talk to him, please? Tell him I'm sorry. She responded from her main account, which meant she'd figured out it was me. No. You need to leave him alone. And honestly, you need to leave me alone too. What you did wasn't just about Jake. You used our friendship as part of some weird test. I thought we were actually friends, but apparently I was just a tool in your self-destruction. I'm sorry, I do value our friendship. You have a fucked up way of showing it. I'm done. Don't contact me again. She blocked me too. I spiraled harder. I drove past Jake's apartment at night, not stopping, just needing to see if his lights were on. I checked his Instagram from my burner account obsessively, even though he rarely posted. I asked mutual friends about him, subtle questions that probably weren't subtle at all. "He seems okay," Sarah reported reluctantly after running into him at a coffee shop. "He didn't want to talk about you." 2 weeks after the birthday party incident, Jake posted a photo on Instagram. It was from a hiking trip. He was smiling, genuinely smiling, looking lighter than I'd seen him look in months. Melissa was in the photo, so was Drew. So were a few other people I vaguely recognized from their friend group. My stomach dropped. They were hanging out without me, which was obvious since we'd broken up, but seeing the proof hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. I commented from my burner account, "Cute, glad to see you're doing well." No response. He didn't even like the comment. 3 days later, another photo, Melissa and Drew at a restaurant. The caption, "Finally a night where he's not traveling." She looked happy. They looked happy. Everything was continuing without me. Then, a week after that, Drew posted something that made my blood run cold. A photo of just him at an airport with the caption, "Accepted the Singapore position. New adventures ahead." He was moving across the world, which meant I refreshed Melissa's Instagram compulsively over the next few days. Nothing. No photos, no updates, no indication of how she was handling her boyfriend moving to another continent. Until there was a photo posted on a Friday night. Melissa and Jake at what looked like a nice dinner. The kind of dinner that was clearly a date. Her caption, "Sometimes the right person has been in your life all along." The comments were full of congratulations, heart emojis, friends saying they'd been shipping them for years. I couldn't breathe. I stared at my phone, reading and rereading that caption, looking at how happy they looked together, how natural. I'd manifested my own nightmare. I'd pushed and pushed, created opportunities for them to get closer, encouraged their friendship, then removed myself from the picture through my own terrible choices. And now they were together, Sarah called me after she saw the post. "Don't spiral, just breathe." "I made this happen," I said, my voice sounded hollow. "I literally caused this exact outcome." "You don't know that, maybe they would have got together eventually anyway." No, this is my fault, I pushed them together." I told Melissa to get close to him. I encouraged their lunches. I created this. Even if that's partially true, you can't change it now. You need to focus on yourself, on figuring out why you did this so you don't do it again. But I couldn't focus on anything except the evidence of my failure scrolling past on my phone. Photos of them at events together. Comments from coworkers saying they'd always thought they'd end up together. Melissa posting things about learning to trust timing and finding love where you least expect it. The worst part, the part I haven't told anyone until now, is that I know it's my fault, but I still check those accounts every single day. I still monitor their relationship from behind my anonymous profile. I watch them fall deeper in love, watch them move in together after just 3 months, watch Jake post photos of Melissa with captions about how she's the best thing that ever happened to him. The same things he used to say about me. I torched my own relationship because I was so convinced it would end that I needed to control how and when. I tested him by flirting with his friend, and he blocked me and started dating her, exactly like the title of this confession suggests. But the full truth is worse. I didn't just flirt with his friend. I systematically pushed them together, created intimacy between them, then removed myself as an obstacle. I engineered my own replacement. I lie awake at night wondering about the alternate universe. The one where I just trusted Jake, where I accepted his love at face value, where I didn't let my anxiety convince me that happiness was just a temporary state before inevitable abandonment. Would we still be together in that universe? Would he have ever looked at Melissa that way if I hadn't planted the seeds, watered them with my insecurity, and then salted the earth of our own relationship? I go to therapy now, twice a week. My therapist has words for what I did: self-fulfilling prophecy, self-sabotage, anxious attachment style, catastrophizing. She's helping me understand that my fear of abandonment was so strong that I'd rather cause the abandonment myself than wait for it to happen naturally. Except, she points out gently, it might not have happened naturally. Jake seemed genuinely committed. I might have destroyed something that could have lasted. That's the thought that keeps me up at night. Not that I lost him, that was always going to happen in my mind. But that I might have been wrong. That he might have actually loved me enough to stay. That I'll never know because I didn't give us the chance. I deleted my burner account last week. My therapist suggested it as a step toward moving forward. I lasted 3 days before I made a new one because I need to know. I need to see how the story continues. I need to watch the relationship I created flourish or fail. I need to torture myself with the evidence of what I lost. They got engaged last month. The ring is beautiful. Melissa cried happy tears in her Instagram story. Jake's smile in the photos is the same smile he used to give me in the early days before I convinced him I wasn't worth it. The comments are full of people saying they're perfect together, that they've been rooting for them, that sometimes the best relationships grow out of friendship. No one mentions me. No one remembers that there was a girl before Melissa. I've been erased from the narrative, which is what I deserve, I guess. But here's what I need you to understand: I don't want sympathy. I'm not looking for people to tell me it wasn't my fault, or that Jake's a jerk for moving on so quickly, or that Melissa violated girl code by dating him. I'm telling you this because I need someone to know the full truth. Not the version where I'm a victim of a guy who monkey branched to his coworker. Not the version where I made one mistake at a party. The real version where I systematically destroyed my own happiness because the fear of losing it was stronger than the joy of having it. I tested him by flirting with his friend, but that was just the visible part. The real test was whether I could accept love without sabotaging it, and I failed. He blocked me and started dating her, but that's not quite right either. He blocked me because I hurt him. And he started dating her because I spent months pushing them together, then removed myself from the equation in the cruelest way possible. I scroll through their engagement photos one more time before closing the app. They're on a beach somewhere, golden hour lighting, looking at each other like they're the only two people in the world. I created this. I destroyed my own relationship and built theirs from the rubble. And the worst part is that I can't even hate them for it, because they didn't do anything wrong. I did this to myself, and I'll have to live with that knowledge for the rest of my life, watching from the shadows as they build the future I was too broken to believe in.